Good day and welcome to Mainstream. Today we have with us Jose Masso. Jose Masso is the Director of Hispanic Liaison with the Governor's Office of Community Service. And we were talking just before the program went on today about the community service, this office that the Governor has set up. And Jose, welcome to our program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, I was wondering if for our audience you could talk a little bit about the Governor's Office of Community Service and what that specifically does for people.
Well, the Governor's Office of Community Service is the Governor's ombudsman, if you will. We are the folks that deal day to day with the public, be it through phone calls or through correspondence or in person. And these are the folks who come to the Governor's office expecting to see the Governor on a moment's notice, or calling wanting to speak with the Governor, or writing to the Governor directly. And as you can imagine, the Governor would love to see everyone, but there are too many to see in one moment. So consequently, our office is the one that deals with the public day to day in that kind of circumstance.
Now, you are the Hispanic Liaison, the director of that part of the office.
Well, I'm the director of the Governor's Office of Community Service, but I'm also the Governor's Hispanic Liaison, a position I've had for the last 4.5 years. This is my fifth year in the Governor's office. And as the Governor's Hispanic Liaison, I'm the person responsible with the day-to-day dealings with the Hispanic community, the growing Hispanic community throughout the state of Massachusetts. So I work with not only the general public, but specifically also with the Hispanic community. In that case, I then advise the Governor or also speak on behalf of the Governor to the Hispanic community in regards to issues involving that.
Now, tell us, what are some of the issues with the Hispanic community these days?
Well, as you can imagine, Chris, a growing community that has been growing in great numbers in the past 10 years has a number of issues that affect it as far as their day-to-day circumstances. And my role is trying to assess what is occurring on a statewide level, how we can be of assistance not only through the services that the state offers, but also in regards to working with municipal government and with the federal government in some cases. So that as Hispanic Liaison, I've had the role in about 4 years to do a variety of different things. In my first year, what I wanted to do was to make sure that everyone knew that Spanish is spoken here. By that, I mean that the State House was a place where Hispanics could go to, and that state services were services that Hispanics could also go to. So my agenda for the first year was to make sure as much as possible throughout all of my travels throughout the state and through the appearances with the Governor, that the Governor was able to speak Spanish to people so that they had a sense of being part of the state of Massachusetts. In the second year, the agenda was to increase the number of Hispanics in state government, because what we found was that we had a number of talented people, not only here in Massachusetts, but from other parts of the country coming to Massachusetts, liking what they saw in Massachusetts, wanting to work in Massachusetts. So consequently, we wanted to increase their numbers so that we had a good number of bilingual, bicultural personnel in administrative positions, not just, you know, your entry-level positions, but a good number of administrative positions. So the second year, our agenda was to increase the number of people working. Our third year, the agenda then was to work closely with state agencies so we can identify programs in specific areas that would be critical as far as assisting those communities in developing and integrating into the mainstream. The example that comes to mind is the city of Lawrence, which is the one that's used as the biggest example. Many people may remember that a few years ago there were some disturbances in the city of Lawrence. Unfortunately, it was due to some miscommunication between a certain segment of the community, but it spilled out into a larger part of the community, and that caused for 3 or 4 days of disturbances and the need for state police to become involved in things of that nature. Well, what occurred following that was that we focused in Lawrence and used Lawrence as the pilot program for other cities and towns to see what state services we can offer, not only in the area of education, the area of employment and training, in the area of housing, but also in the area of integrating that community into the city government. And I think we've done well through the city of Lawrence as far as putting those kinds of programs together. So that year we used it to sort of like really focus in what was missing out there, what's needed. And you can imagine the number of people who are coming into the area who do not speak the English language, who have moved in a relatively short period of time and have increased the population, because when you talk about minority communities outside of certain segments in Massachusetts, for instance, when you talk about minority community outside of Boston or Springfield, you're really talking about a Hispanic community or a Southeast Asian community. And that's a whole different ballgame compared to talking about a black community or something else, because you're talking about a community that does not, for the most part, speak the language. It's not acculturated yet with the American way. And so that means that city government, in many instances, has to redefine how do they work with and how do they integrate this community into the mainstream. And that's where we come in, try to assist them in doing that. And that's been our agenda for the last 2 years.
The Hispanic community around the entire United States is one of the largest minority groups in the country, isn't it? Is it not?
Mm-hmm. And growing quickly. The people who deal in demographics say that the Hispanic community will be the largest minority community by the year 2000. I was just in Texas recently, and if there's any indication from what I saw there, as far as San Antonio, for instance, or Corpus Christi, the number of Hispanics who are participating not only in politics and in government, but in business, in education, in some of the other professional fields, you get a feeling that it'll be a vital community and a very important community in years to come.
It's very true in Florida also, right?
Yes, sir. Florida, it's interesting because what we find, for instance here, I'm from Puerto Rico, and when I first moved to the Boston area back in the early 70s, the number of Hispanics that you found, for the most part, were Puerto Rican and for the most part lived in the Boston area. Now what you find is that the demographics have changed. So we have not only Puerto Ricans living in Boston, we have them living all throughout the state of Massachusetts, as far north as Lawrence and Lowell, Haverhill, Peabody, Salem, Lynn. I could keep going all the way west to Springfield. But another interesting part about it is the number of other Hispanics that have moved in. Lawrence is a good example. Again, Lawrence, you find that you have a Hispanic community, but you also have a Central American community, many Colombians living there. You have a Dominican community living there, a small Cuban community also living there. And that's the same for other parts of the state. However, if you move out of New England and you go to Rhode Island, you'll find a heavy concentration of Colombians and Dominicans living in the Rhode Island area. And as you keep going south through New York, of course, you find more Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, and Colombians. And then you keep going all the way south to Florida, where you find, for the most part, Cuban and Central Americans. Then when you move west, it's a whole different ballgame. I mean, you know, you talk about Mexican Americans, you talk about South Americans, Central Americans, etc. So it's interesting to see how the Hispanic community is well represented by the different groups that live in these different areas. But for Massachusetts, it's interesting because it's really changed in the past 10 years.
One of the things that everyone always does, and it's hard to do, but people always do it, they speak in generalities. And we're talking now about the Hispanic community at large in the United States for just a moment. That's made up of so many, as you mentioned, different Hispanic groups. Are they very similar? Or do they all have their own very distinct cultures and backgrounds and music and everything?
Everything you just said.
Yes. Is there a commonality between them other than the fact that it's Hispanic?
Okay, that starts it off. I mean, the base is the fact that we all speak the same language. That for the most part we have a similar history, although each one has its own particular history. In the case of Puerto Rico, being American citizens separates us from the other Spanish-speaking countries. The fact that we're a Commonwealth and part of the United States separates us from the other countries in that sense. But nevertheless, we have some common issues and some common bonds. We have the issues that we're all Hispanics living in the United States. We have the issue that not only we speak the same language, but many of the things that affect us all the same way, be it education and the need for bilingual education for many of us, be it in housing and the need for affordable housing, be it in employment and training and the need for us to be put in a situation where we can make use of all the resources available that state and federal and city government have so that we can become educated and employable and can be contributing to society. And so consequently what you find then is that if we were to celebrate a Hispanic Heritage Week in the United States, you would find those different cultures represented. You would find the Mexican American culture with their own particular backgrounds, and you would find the Central American cultures with their own particular history and roots and you'll find the Caribbean culture with all the particular issues and things of that nature. And even though we all speak Spanish, there's a different use of the Spanish language. It's similar to using the word pop or tonic. I mean, depends on what part of the United States you go to, will be the use of that language. Well, it's the same thing with Spanish. So what makes it interesting then is that even though we're all Spanish speakers, we have this rich diversity that makes us even more exciting. That's what turns me on about working with the Hispanic community.
They say here in the United States the second language is Spanish. And as you were saying, the community at large in the entire country is growing and will be the largest, maybe the largest in the future. Because there are so many different backgrounds to the Hispanic group at large, and as we integrate the Hispanics into more and more activities and at more and more levels, because there are so many different backgrounds from each one of them, in schools and things, do we need to address those in very particular ways?
Well, I was a teacher, and that's what attracted me to the city of Boston, the opportunity to teach in bilingual education. And in teaching bilingual education, I found that it was important to make use of all the contributions of all the different Hispanic groups, because it was important for the kids to feel good about who they are and where they come from, and also to be able to share more than anything else. My aim was that we were a multicultural society, and that it was important for all of us to be able to assimilate the good things from everyone, not only from Hispanics, but from Afro-Americans, from white Americans, from whomever, and do it in a way that we felt good about the things that we were integrating into our own persona. And so consequently, I would address it and use certain times of the year to do so. I mean, there are certain activities that you can focus on that have to do specifically with the roots or with the history and the culture of that particular community. And even if that community was not represented, even if you had not one Mexican American in your classroom, it was important to at least make note and use of a Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May. It was important to make use of the discovery of Puerto Rico as an element to bring kids in, just as it was important for the Hispanic kids to know about Martin Luther King and George Washington and everybody else. So that I would try to address it in a multicultural setting, integrating everything that they had to offer as individuals, but doing it in a collective fashion so that they would feel good about themselves.
The United States is probably one of the few countries in the entire world that truly is a melting pot of all different other societies and peoples from those societies. As someone who's come from Puerto Rico, who is a member of the Hispanic community, how do you feel America is handling that? It's a big responsibility.
It is. I think that America is going through growing pains, which is expected. I think that America will continue to go through growing pains because America is seen by many people outside the United States as being the land of opportunity. I'm here because I had the opportunity to come to the United States to study, and I saw, as growing up as a teenager, I knew more or less that I would wind up coming to the United States at some time in my life because I knew that the opportunities were here. I think that because of that, many of us have high expectations of the United States. And in having that expectations, we expect that it lives up to its image. And the image of the United States outside of its borders is rather interesting because for many of us, we see it as a place where you have democracy, where you have the freedom of speech, where you have respect for the individual, but at the same time you work as a team collectively, where you have the opportunity to participate and be part of the mainstream and therefore make that American dream yours. And so consequently, the expectations then when you arrive to the United States, in my case when I arrived to the United States, was that I would be welcome and that I would be part of immediately of that American dream. It wasn't that wasn't the case, but nevertheless, what I have found in the years that I've lived here is that the more people I meet and the more people that get to know me and get to know about my culture and get to know about the people that I represent, the more open they are to integrating this community. And so consequently, I think that the United States is going through the growing pain because it's in large numbers. Different language, don't speak English, you speak Spanish. Different culture, I mean, there's a whole laid-back type of thing compared to the rat race of, let's go and let's do, let's go, let's do, let's produce, etc., etc. There's sort of like a balance of let's work, but let's enjoy life while we're doing it. So there's some things that in one way or another will have to be understood, and so like a bridge of communication will have to occur. And that's like on programs such as this one where we have the opportunity to dialogue are important because it gives the people an opportunity to understand each other and to hear each other and maybe pick up a few things from each other.
Do you, in talking to people all over the state, do you find there's some people who resent the fact that, in essence, the Hispanic community is bringing into the American culture the Spanish language as a second language? I hear that more and more from people, not the resentment, but the fact that, it will be a second language here. Do you find some people resenting the fact that, why don't you speak English?
Sure, I think that that's everywhere. I mean, I think that there are people who resent the fact that the communities that are coming into the United States now, not only Spanish-speaking communities, but other communities are moving in quickly and are becoming part of the mainstream of the United States one way or another. But at the same time, we must understand that when a person comes to the United States speaking a language, it's very different than the ancestors for many people who have been living here in the United States for many years. Those who came from Europe came with the idea, for the most part, that they were coming to the United States for good, that they were coming to become American citizens, and they were coming with the idea that they were going to stay here and they were fleeing whatever it was that they were fleeing. The history of the Hispanic is somewhat different. There are some, like myself, that come already as American citizens. So it's not citizens that we're looking for. There are others who are fleeing a war in their particular community, be it Central America, or poverty in their particular community. And so consequently, they're coming for different reasons. But they're all always coming with the idea that the United States will offer them the opportunity that they're not receiving at home, but that they can return home having made it in the United States. For the most part, it doesn't turn out that way. For the most part, it doesn't turn out that way. For the most part, it turns out that they stay here, and they stay here, and they stay here, and then their children stay here, etc. And very few people are returned and go back to their homeland. And so consequently, what happens then is that once that occurs, it's usually the next generation that becomes integrated. My mother-in-law, for instance, speaks some English, but it's still very much integrated into the specific Hispanic community. She'll listen to Spanish radio, she'll watch Spanish television, she'll read Spanish press. Not that she doesn't hear English press or watch English news or anything of that nature. She does, but for the most part, her prime source of information is that. My wife, on the other hand, who was born in Puerto Rico, raised in the United States, is bilingual, bicultural. She'll shop downtown as well as she'll shop in the suburban mall, as well as she'll shop in the local mom-dad store that offers the products that we use. My children follow the same suit as my wife. Bilingual, bicultural, they'll dance music in English, they'll dance music in Spanish. You know, they're aware of Bon Jovi just as much as they're aware of Ruben Blades. So consequently, I think that what you will see is that our children will be the ones who will integrate and bring the bilingual, bicultural feeling to America. And so consequently, I think what will happen is that will be an added advantage for the United States, because what the United States will have then is a community that will be able to communicate with the neighbors south of the United States, do it in a way that it will be beneficial for the United States, not only politically, but be beneficial to the United States economically, be beneficial to the United States as far as the world of communications and the world of high tech and things of that nature. And so I see a bright future for those young men and women growing up in the United States in a bilingual, bicultural society. I think that those who resent the fact that there's another language being spoken should probably travel to other parts of the United States, because not the United States, of the world. You go to Europe. How many languages do they speak in Europe? I went to Israel last year or the year before, and it was amazing being able to sit in one place and hear different languages being spoken. It was the same person speaking 1, 2, or 3 different languages, and it was a positive sign for me, because that was a way of communicating, and it was done in such a way that you felt welcome and part of who they were.
Most people who are born and raised, at least in Europe, have to learn at least 2 languages, if not more. Many of them have 4 or 5 languages under their belts. Talking about different areas, in Switzerland, there are basically 3 languages spoken: German, French, some Swiss, and Italian, because of the different regions.
There you go.
So it's not uncommon, and but I think it's that maybe some people feel that this is the way it has been. Now it's being changed. You see, that's America, maybe what they resent is change.
True, but I think, Chris, if I were to think of myself as I am 20 years old and I'm going to stay like this for the rest of my life, I'd be fooling myself, because every year I change. I wish I were. Every year I change. Every year I add different things to my persona, and I discard other things from my persona. And I think that you and everyone else does the same thing. And I think America changes. And there are changes that occur internally, and there are changes that occur because of what goes on around us. You know, if OPEC hadn't done what they did years ago, who knows what our oil situation would be, or our gas situation would be. If there were not some skirmishes in Central America, who knows what our foreign policy would be at this moment. And I think that consequently every year is a change, and we have to sort of like be prepared for the change. Sure, we should maintain certain traditional values. We should maintain certain roots of what makes America America, but understand that in doing so, we're open to accepting new changes within who we are and what we're all about. Yeah. And I think that that's for the benefit and for the good of the United States. And I think that the people moving into the United States are here to contribute and be a positive influence in whatever occurs in the years to come. I know I've come to the United States with the idea of working closely, not just with Hispanics, but with everyone. And I've come to the United States with the idea that I have something good to offer and something positive to offer, and I'm sure the thousands of other Hispanics come here come with the same mindset.
All right. I just want to remind everyone that if you would like to have a contact number for Jose at the State House, we will be giving that to you at the end of the program, so have a paper and pencil handy for that. Jose, what are some specific problems that the Hispanic community has in the greater Boston area specifically?
Well, Chris, the Hispanic community is one that is in need of housing just like everyone is. It's interesting because in my work in the Governor's Office of Community Services, the great number of calls that we receive have to do with housing. And as you know, there's a shortage of housing, affordable housing. Not that there isn't housing, sure, there's housing if you can afford it. The unfortunate thing is that the number of Hispanics with kids are different in proportion to the general population. Number one, the Hispanic community is a younger community. The number of kids is not 2 kids and a dog, it's like 4 kids. Okay, so it's double the need. What you have then is that the type of housing needs are somewhat different than the general community, just the same way the type of employment needs are somewhat different than the general community. So that not only do you find people who are employable, but that same person who is employable needs some kind of training to go along with the employment. And for the most part, it involves some kind of English as a second language training, some kind of skill training so that they can become full-fledged employed citizens of the Commonwealth. And so the two issues then have to do with the area of employment and in the area of housing. Along that side, of course, is the area of health, and I can't leave that out because health is a very important part of the needs of the Hispanic community. Whereas the general population may have some needs, especially our teenagers may have some needs in regards to the area of adolescent pregnancy and things of that nature, the proportion of Hispanics falling in that category, teenage pregnancy, is much higher compared to the other two, and that has to do with the population and the age. And so consequently, there's a need to really address the issues of health and health education and information, and do it in a way where our youth are aware of the circumstances, aware of the ramifications of anything that they do health-wise, and so that they care for themselves. And I would say that the last part, not in any order of importance, but I would say the area of education, in the sense of the high incidence of dropouts as far as Hispanics are concerned in the public schools. And in some sense, it has to do not only with the language barrier, Chris, it has to do in some sense in the area of being uninformed and lacking counsel. Not that there aren't any good counselors out there. There are a great number of good counselors throughout the public school systems all throughout Massachusetts. There are a great number of agencies that have been set up to inform our students in regards to the opportunities they have in education, but that there's a need to really target to those high-risk number of kids in the school systems who are already sort of like marked from a very young age for failure. And those are the ones who their situations at home, be it because of the housing situation, be it because of the number of siblings and in particular environments that need employment and things of that nature, they're under higher pressure and consequently are the ones that are subject to falling out of school. So I would say that those are the areas of great concern for the Hispanic community. On the other side, there's some bright parts. There's some bright spots. We've had a good number of Hispanic professionals moving to Massachusetts. There in the past 4 years, Governor Dukakis has appointed 3 Hispanic judges, the most recent one being appointed in the city of Worcester. Recently, before that, was in the city of Lawrence, and a judge was reappointed to a higher court in the city of Boston. So that we're seeing some inroads in those particular areas, just as we're seeing in the number of Hispanic professionals in the legal field, in the architectural field, in the health professions, and things of that nature. So there's some bright spots. It's just a question of both of them catching up so that we're going at it at the same time.
Now, how do people in the Hispanic community know that services that you have to offer and that lifeline that you provide is there?
Well, from my many appearances, I travel all throughout the state. I hit just about every single Hispanic community, every single Hispanic agency, and I speak to just about every single Hispanic group that's out there as part of a way of promoting what we do in our office and making them know that they have, like you say, a lifeline to the State House and to government services, state services. And we do it on a regular, periodic basis, and we do it with the idea of trying to do outreach to the communities so that they're aware of state government being part of their life, and also so we can be information and referral as far as city and federal government also.
I think it's wonderful, by the way, that the governor has such an office as this available so that people, anybody, can call up and feel as though they can make some contact with a government official that may be able to help them with their particular problem. I think a lot of people haven't known that. That's a feeling. Government seems to be distancing itself between the general population and the political population, and I think to have those tie lines, and they're very important.
Definitely, definitely. And again, I want to remind everyone who's watching, this office is for everyone. I may be Hispanic liaison, but I'm also director of the Governor's Office of Community Service, and we serve everyone and anyone who is part of the wonderful state of Massachusetts.
Let's give the phone number and the address out. It is coming up here. It will be at room 159, the State House, Boston, Mass. 02133. It's Jose Masso III, and the phone number is area code 800. It's a toll-free number, 800-632-8176. That's 800-632-8176. Your Vegematic will be ready soon. No, that's I'm teasing about that. Jose, what are the? We only have about 30 seconds left. What's a typical call? What are they asking for these days?
I want to speak to the governor.
That's it, huh?
I want to speak to the governor, and they go from there, depending on what the issue is. But for the most part, as folks want to speak directly with the governor, and when not available, they speak to us, and we try to serve them as best as possible.
Jose Masso, we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Chris.
And say hello to the governor for us.
We'll do so.
And thank you for joining us today here on Mainstream.
Can you spot the drunk driver?